Tonight's show is brought to you by Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika. Get ready to smile.
Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for tuning in on Trade Deadline Day. This has become a yearly tradition for myself and this channel. Just coming to you live at the tail end of the deadline. Typically, it leads to some madness, and I will tell you, this year is unusual because typically I'm coming on here and I'm talking about who can the Braves go out there and get prior to the playoffs. This year is a little different because we're talking about who the Braves can get rid of ahead of the trade deadline and ahead of the playoffs. Who can they offload? Because if you haven't noticed, this year hasn't exactly gone to plan for Atlanta. They're currently 16 games back of the division lead. They are 7 games back of third place, which puts the Marlins in third, the Phillies in second, and the Mets in first. So before we talk about what they could do and what they might do in the next some 24-odd minutes, let's talk about what they already did. They started on the 28th. Of course, they acquired Eric Fetty via free agency, and they acquired Carlos Carrasco from the Yankees for cash considerations. We knew when those deals were made that those were basically to just cover innings, considering that the entirety of the starting rotation is on the IL. They are there to basically get us through the foreseeable future and maybe through the end of the season. They follow that with, on the 30th, getting right-handed pitcher Tyler Kinley. He does have control beyond this year. They also lose right-handed pitcher Austin Smith to the Colorado Rockies. Kind of not a huge move there, but a move nonetheless. Later that day, this was the real go-getter. They traded for infielder Jim Jarvis, losing right-handed pitcher Rafael Montero to Detroit. They also DFA'd Iniel De Los Santos. So here's what we can take away from that. Number one, the Braves and Alex Anthopoulos know that the problems that we see on this team are the problems that they need to address. The same problems that we've talked about pretty much all year. I, since really the offseason, have thought that the bullpen was going to be a major concern. And I know that the offense didn't pan out this year, at least thus far, and it didn't really pan out consistently. But it was definitely not the biggest problem. The pitching staff, the pitching injuries were definitely taking its toll. But I'd argue the bullpen was a problem from day one. And I think they knew it too. But basically, they got what they could in the offseason. So who should move in the next 24 minutes? Who are the guys that are out there that we need to talk about possibly getting traded? Well, number one, and this guy's in the lineup tonight. Doesn't mean he still couldn't get traded, but he is in the lineup tonight. He's hit 2 home runs in the past week. Marcell Ozuna, who is a free agent at the end of the year. That is the most notable reason why he should be traded. Ozuna has certainly had his ups and downs over his tenure with the Braves, no doubt about it. But all in all, I would say there's more good than bad. He, of course, signed a 5-year deal back in 2020, or 2019 rather, around that time, meaning that he is a free agent at the end of the year. This year, he has 15 homers, a 233 batting average. Look, he's played hurt through much of this year, but there's no doubt that a team could use a bat like him. And every time I brought up the idea of trading Marcell Ozuna this season, and I've talked about it quite a bit, even before the Braves struggled, I talked about it. Heck, we talked about it a couple of years ago that the Braves could trade Marcell Ozuna because he is such a valuable bat, and he's, frankly, a talent that is easily replaced. You can always find a bat. Finding a bat that can also play defense, that's your real struggle. And Ozuna, though he can play first in theory and outfield in theory, has been relegated to mostly designated hitting. So that all said, I do think he'll get moved if the Braves can move him, because I saw a report earlier today. Every time I bring this up, people say, well, what about the 10-5? He's got to approve the trade. And I've always said that if he goes to a contender, why wouldn't he want to be traded, right? If you can go from the Braves, who are, again, 16, 17 games back in the division, and you can go to the Padres, or you can go to the Mariners, or you can go to even the Marlins right now. He likes Miami. He played in Miami. They're in third place. You have a better shot with them than you do Atlanta. I've always said, why wouldn't he want to do that? Well, since then, he's come out and said that he wants to go somewhere where he can play every day. That's his one caveat, where he will waive whatever 10-5 rule or whatever. So will it happen? I don't know. I hope it does, because for the Braves, if you don't trade him right now, you're pretty much losing the investment you've made. Marcell Ozuna is not going to be extended. He is 34 years old. His next contract, especially if it's a long-term contract, will likely be his last major contract. And he probably knows that. His last contract was for $80 million. I doubt the next one is worth that, nor do I think it will be for near as long. The Braves signed him for a 5-year deal, which, again, has had its ups and downs. But you got to believe that his off-the-field past has made an impact in trying to trade him. His 10-5 has definitely had an impact, but finding somewhere where he can play every day may be even harder, because having him as an everyday DH makes him a little less accessible in your lineup, in your roster, that kind of thing. And that kind of promise being demanded is a difficult thing to fulfill for any team, which I'm sure is making it difficult on Alex Anthopoulos to find a happy home for Marcell Ozuna. So if he's not moved in the next 20 minutes, he very well could be a Brave throughout the end of this year. Same could be said for Raisel Iglesias. Raisel Iglesias, of course, another one of the guys that we've had for quite a while, has been our closer, has been moved to out of the closing role. He's been good for the Braves. He's been excellent for the Braves. He's been not so great for the Braves as well. Again, Raisel, just another guy that has had his ups and downs. This year has not been very good at all. He through 45 appearances, he's 4-6 with a 4.85 ERA. And less innings than 45. He's got 42 and 2/3. He does have 47 strikeouts. The thing about Raisel is his strikeout numbers really aren't down. In fact, they're up from last year. He had a strikeout per nine of 8.8 last year. This year he's got a strikeout per nine of 9.9. It's the fact that people are scoring on him that's really the problem. So Raisel, in theory, a change of scenery could really help him, but it could also not make a difference. And it's tough for a guy like AA to make a move with Raisel Iglesias if Raisel Iglesias' numbers aren't there. And again, Raisel is on a 4-year deal for $58 million. Whoever takes him would have to take a good chunk of that. So we'll have to see if they are willing to do that. The thing that helps Raisel, the thing that helps the Braves sell Raisel is the fact that he is a reliever with experience and a reliever with postseason experience, and he's got good experience, and he's been doing this a long time. That is the thing that I would say is that overall, somebody out there could take him. We've heard that the Cubs were interested. We've heard that some other teams have gained interest and probably lost it in the ups and downs of the trade deadline. But one guy, or two guys, I should say, that probably do have a good bit of interest that I think could be moved. They're not necessarily you got to move them. You don't have to, but they're guys that I think could be moved in the next 17 minutes. Pierce Johnson and Aaron Bummer. And the reason you don't have to move them is that you do have team control for 2026. Pierce Johnson has a team option for 26. Aaron Bummer is signed through 26. The thing about Aaron Bummer is he's got a $9.5 million salary next year. So if the Braves want to offload that salary, which they might, if they want to offload it and just completely rebuild the bullpen, you could do that. You very well could do that. So all in all, I think what you need to look for with the Braves right now is building towards the future. I think this year is out of the question. Alex Anthopoulos infamously got on 680 The Fan earlier this year and talked about the fact that, unless the Braves completely fall off the rails, we're not selling people that are, have team control beyond this year. And I think he means that. Especially like core players in the lineup, I think that's true. I don't think you're going to see Matt Olson move, or Riley move, or Acuna move. I don't even think you're going to see somebody like Ozzie Albies move, Michael Harris. The only one that I ever really listened to from you guys was Sean Murphy. I thought because just how good Drake Baldwin's been this year, you could potentially see that move. At this point, I don't even think that's going to happen. I think that's going to be saved for the offseason, if indeed it does happen, because I think the Braves are going to want to reallocate some how do I put this? They're going to reallocate the way they want their team to be built, right? When we got Sean Murphy, we thought we needed to get a staple catcher, and we traded away quite a bit to do that. Well, now you have a Drake Baldwin, who is really good, is probably still in the running for Rookie of the Year if he's not at the top. I mean, he's been a really solid bat, really solid guy behind the plate. Hard to argue with Drake Baldwin. So they could move Murphy and get a backup catcher, even a Travis d'Arnaud if you can get him back. I mean, somebody like that. I think that's a really good catching duo. You could also, with losing Marcell Ozuna, you could keep both and have one DH and one catch and switch days like we saw a few years ago with d'Arnaud and with Contreras, I think in 21. That was a good form, and I liked it. You kept the bats in the lineup more, and you gave them more consistency, which we may get to see. A lot of you guys have talked about that over the years, having Murphy hit every day. That could help him, and I don't disagree. I think a guy like Drake Baldwin could use as many at-bats as possible, so I like both of those ideas. If you're going to trade Murphy, though, you got to get quite a bit in return, either a prospect haul or maybe your staple shortstop if you can find him. You got to have something pretty prolific to get rid of Murphy at the deal we have him on. So all in all, I think you have to build towards the future, which, again, we are monitoring Twitter to see what the Braves do, if anything, in the next few minutes. And remember, just keep in mind, even if 6 o'clock passes, something very well may come in shortly thereafter. Back in 21, we were live, and we thought all was lost, and all of a sudden we signed Richard Rodriguez, Jorge Soler, Adam Duvall right there at the end. So just keep that in mind. If it's 6:15 and you hear something, that's not necessarily all that unordinary. Before we get into the comment section, which we will, remember Super Chats do get your priority. They get your questions answered immediately pretty much. I try to do my best to do that. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk about what the Mets and the Phillies did. Because whether or not you guys think it matters at this point, it does. So the real key here for the Mets, they had a big week. There's no arguing that. They acquired Gregory Soto, Tyler Rogers, Ryan Helsley, just in their bullpen. They also acquired outfielder Cedric Mullins. A lot of big names, a lot of solid arms out of the pen. They basically just got a brand new 7, 8, 9 in their pen if they want it. It's good enough to be a setup man, and a closer on any given team. I mean, it's that good of a trade deadline. They did really well here. They lost quite a bit. I don't know if you can read my notes, but I had to write who they lost. Ooh, that's bright. Let's see. I had to write who they lost very, very small. Man, that's bright. There you go, right there. See how small I had to write who they lost over here? Very small. So they had to lose quite a bit, prospects mainly. They traded with the Orioles, Giants, and Cardinals to make all that happen. So all in all, I would say this. It's good for the Mets. They're going all in on this year, but that's the key. They're going all in on this year. Every single one of those guys I just mentioned are free agents at the end of this year. If they want them, they're going to have to re-sign them, and that's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. And remember, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Eddie Rosario, Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler, Adam Duvall, those guys, Richard Rodriguez, all of those guys are free agents at the end of the year. Those are the guys you pick up at the trade deadline. That's why they're available. Their time is running short, and those teams need to profit off their investment, and right now that's what we're seeing. The Mets have done a really good job. The Phillies acquired Joanne Duran, I should say. They lost catcher Eduardo Tate and right-handed pitcher Mick Abel. Mick Abel is one that I kind of went, oh, okay, because I remember playing as him in MLB The Show not too long ago. So he's a guy that they're probably going to feel that in the future. But they acquire some bullpen help there with Duran. They also acquire center fielder Harrison Bader from the Twins. So they had a big week too. They got some things done, if they're done, which they may not be. But the key is they're getting ready for, of course, they're getting ready for what they think they're going to have, which is a playoff run, no doubt, and a division race between them and either the Phillies or the Mets, whichever side you're on. But we do have some news coming in. The Royals are reportedly acquiring left-handed pitcher Bailey Falter in a trade with the Pirates. We haven't got word on what the return is. The Padres are acquiring Nestor Cortez from the Brewers, which is pretty interesting. The Padres have had a big week. The Astros have had a big week. They got Carlos Correa back. That kind of came out of nowhere. The Boston Red Sox are acquiring right-hander Dustin May from the Dodgers. No word on the return there. So a lot happening in the next few minutes. Try to make sure I didn't miss anything. But yeah, a lot still happening. A lot of moves are going to be made very fast, very quickly, because typically there's that few minutes at like 5 to 5:30 where nothing happens, and then all of a sudden at the very end, we're in the last 10 minutes right now, you're going to see them rip pretty quickly. So that's what we're seeing right now. They're very much moving very fast. All of that happened in the last 5 minutes, by the way. Dustin May has moved. That is confirmed according to Ken Rosenthal. Pirates, of course, are trading Bailey Falter to the Royals for two prospects, Evan Sisk, left-handed pitcher, and Kalen Moss, first baseman. So a lot, again, happening in the past few minutes. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know it's a big day. And again, I wish I could report some better news about how the Braves are going to go get all these guys. And, maybe next year. But right now, I think they're more focused on offloading cash and maybe getting as much money saved for next year, given the fact that they're going to have no luxury tax to worry about next year. Eric Bachman was the first to tune in. We appreciate you. He says, who would you trade? Who would you acquire? At this point, I'm not really worried about who I'd acquire. I'd more focus on who I would let go. And we kind of just went down the list. I hope that answered your questions. Again, if you can, Marcell Ozuna, Raisel Iglesias are the must-goes if Alex Anthopoulos can pull that off. Pierce Johnson and Aaron Bummer, they could be moved. They probably have more value than the other two just because they do have team control, and the Braves are probably going to have to rebuild their pen anyway. But again, I'm not so much going to be upset if they don't get moved. I think Ozuna and Iglesias really do need to get moved. That's just my take. While we're talking, Mark Feinsand tweets, Brandon Lockridge goes to the Padres to Brewers for Cortez. So that's the return. Nestor Cortez from the Brewers to the Padres. Brandon Lockridge from the Padres to the Brewers. J.M. Gillis says there is actually Major League talent with control the Braves can acquire. This is ridiculous. I don't disagree. I think it's crazy that we're this late in the day and these guys haven't moved. Unless something happens in the next few minutes. You never know. But I think it's kind of crazy that we are this far down and we haven't done anything. J.M. Gillis also says, with the money Liberty makes, they aren't letting them spend. Again, I agree with you, but I think it's more about the luxury tax and getting out from underneath that. I said the other day, and I kind of surprised myself with how much I like this, but I did like the way I put it. I said the other day that this is kind of the intermission of the window because they want to get out from underneath that luxury tax and then they can spend like crazy, right? Then they can spend and not worry so much about the consequences of spending that much. Again, obviously, you wish you had the bank account of some other owners, no doubt about it, but Liberty Media, that's kind of what we're being given. J.M. Gillis wants Alex Anthopoulos fired. I don't think that'll happen, and the reason it won't happen, number one, I think he's actually a really good general manager. We've seen what he can do when given the opportunity. I think it's because he's doing within the parameters of what Liberty Media wants, so I think he'll be just fine. It's not a great season. I think things need to change next year, whether that's coaching changes, whether it's managerial changes, whatever. I do think things need to change. I think there does need to be some new blood. But I don't think it's at the general manager position. Just more on Nestor Cortez. Let's see. Let's go down a little bit. Let's go to Georgia Dog. Tyler did discuss this in the Braves Championship video if you haven't seen it. Yes, I did. Do you think we will get on the Bo free agency, Tyler? We could. I mean, shortstop is definitely somewhere that we need to put focus on. As much as I love Nick Allen's defense, which it's really good, that is somewhere that we do need to focus on come the offseason. But I really think our main focus has got to be pitching. And I didn't think we had enough pitching going into this year, and you've seen what happened. So I think that's going to be our main focus. Because think about it, we didn't really replace Fried, we didn't really replace Morton, and basically we were hoping we could get by on the power of friendship, and that didn't happen. So all in all, I think pitching's got to be a focus, more so than shortstop. But if the right deal comes along, maybe. But I think Bo is going to get swarmed with other teams and teams with bigger pocketbooks than the Braves have. While you're asking that question, the Yankees are reportedly acquiring infielder Jose Caballero in a trade with the Rays. Wow, Taylor Rogers, who was acquired by the Pirates in the Ke'Bryan Hayes deal yesterday, has already been traded to the Cubs. So quite a big deal. The Tampa Bay Rays are acquiring Adrian Hauser from the White Sox. To the Rays. So Miguel Andujar is traded now to the Reds are acquiring Miguel Andujar from the A's. So yeah, that's interesting. Jeff Passan tweets, reliever Phil Maton is going to the Texas Rangers from the St. Louis Cardinals. That's Phil Maton going to the Rangers from the Cardinals. Quite a bit going on. I told you it's going to be very fast moving in the next few minutes. We have 4 minutes to go before 6 o'clock, so teams have another 4 minutes to get their stuff in. Obviously, stuff can still happen following that, but they have a few more minutes to get those deals done. Alex Anthopoulos, you're on the clock. Let's see. Georgia Dog says, I have seen McGurk at Dunkin' Donuts, and he wasn't happy with the team's performance this year, and I agree with him. I completely agree. But again, I don't know how much of that is on McGurk and how much of that is on Double-A. I definitely think the money aspect, more, I don't even know that that's on McGurk. It's more on Liberty Media in general, because you can't have a team with this much profit not give you any results. That is unacceptable. But if they can come back next year and spend money the right way and it pays off saving this money, then I might feel differently. Here we go. Mark Feinsand, the White Sox will not be trading Luis Robert Jr. by 6 p.m. per source. So Luis Robert is to stay with the White Sox. That's interesting. The Marlins are not expected to trade Sandy Alcantara today, league sources said. Very interesting there too. So a lot of folks we've gotten confirmation aren't going anywhere, but again, the Braves still on the clock, and we are ready to see what they're going to do and how this is going to play out. But every other team's been mentioned. Let's see what the Braves do. All right, let's go to the chat. James Franey, I love the Braves standing pat for the most part. Yeah, for the most part, but there's, again, some deals that need to be made. I think Ozuna Rysel makes the most sense to move on from. I think they're more so struggling to find deals for those. And look, I mean, not everybody is going to want, another man's trash is not necessarily another man's treasure all the time. And, right now it's looking like it's kind of going to be tough. Matthew says, we are definitely at least trading Iglesias, right? I know Ozuna has a no-trade clause, but Iglesias doesn't. I hope they trade both, but I'm shocked Iglesias is still here. They are trading him, right? I hope so. I genuinely hope so. And look, I've really liked Iglesias over the past few years, and I think it needs to happen. But so far, it just has not come through. The Pirates will not be trading either Andrew Heaney or Dennis Santana by the trade deadline. Adrian Hauser is being acquired by the Rays from the White Sox, but that is all we have so far. A lot of folks coming in right now, a lot of moves being made in these final minutes, so I think there's definitely still a chance that we see some guys move. If nothing happens, I'll be more surprised than anything, but I think one of those guys has at least got to go. David Thatcher, Mets and Phillies have owners who care about winning. That's the bottom line. Well, look, I don't know that that's necessarily a dig on just Liberty Media. There's a lot of owners that you could say don't care about winning, right? Let's look at, quite a bit of them. That's why they want a salary cap right now, so that they can still be competitive and, not spend as much money, because they just care about filling the stands. which is why, of course, we've heard the chatter about Bryce Harper. Bless me. That's why we heard the chatter about Bryce Harper and the commissioner this past week, right? There's been a lot going on, and the owners want more than anything to get a salary cap so that they can keep their spending down while also being competitive and getting fans in the ballpark, right? And you could argue that's a bad thing for baseball. There's probably right and wrong on both sides, but all in all, that's where baseball stands at the moment. So, and I got a feeling we're probably going to have a lockout after next season based on the way things are going at the moment. I hope not, but that's kind of how it seems. A lot of folks in the chat, remember Super Chats do get priority. They get you moved to the front of the line and get you a guaranteed answer if you have a question. Jeff Passan tweets a few minutes ago, or just now, the Yankees are getting Camilo Doval from the Giants. Yankees are having a big day. Again, the Cubs reportedly acquiring left-handed pitcher Taylor Rogers with the trade with the Pirates, who just went to Pittsburgh, by the way. David Thatcher says general manager did nothing in the winter, so why would he do it now? Well, the difference in the wintertime is he'd have to spend money. Right now, he wouldn't have to spend any, so we'll have to see what happens. But right now, that's what I would say. Yankees are really improving their bullpen, a third addition to their bullpen here with Camilo Doval. Big deal there. Hope Braves get Cease in a trade. I doubt it. I really doubt it. Pastor Chuck says, I hope Ozuna gets a new deal with the Braves. Well, I said a couple of weeks ago that if they didn't trade Ozuna, then the talks of an extension very well may happen, and it very well may, but I just don't see it happening. Matty F says, Snitker probably fell asleep, and that's why we haven't seen any trades from the Braves. Snit doesn't control the trades. You need to look for AA. George Dog, appreciate the bless you. I haven't sneezed in months, but of course it happens the moment I get on a stream. Snyder says, nobody wants our 200 hitters. I'm hoping they take our 5 ERA pitchers too. James Franey, AA, just won a World Series, so relax. We have been riddled with injuries. Don't disagree, but I do want to get as many different guys offloaded as we can before we get to next year, and maybe get a return. Right, if we can get some prospects and reload our guys, that would be great. Let's see, Soroka last night to the Cubs. Yeah, I really like that deal. Obviously, really like Soroka. Speaking of former Braves, Charlie Morton is going to the Tigers. That is according to Jeff Passan, or Jeff Passan. I don't know why I always say Passan. Jeff Passan. Mark Feinsand says Sandy Alcantara and Edward Cabrera remain with the Marlins. I think the rate we're going, it's not looking good. It is 6:02 Eastern time here, 2 minutes past the hour. So we'll see. Mark Bowman tweeted 16 minutes ago, Ozuna took his regular round of batting practice and is now shagging balls at first base, less than 15 minutes to go. Of course, here we are with 3 minutes past. We'll have to see. Ozuna is in the lineup tonight, but he very well may not take the field. So we'll see. Blue Jays are acquiring Lewis Varland from the Twins. Charlie Morton is being traded to the Tigers from the Orioles. Already had that. But yeah, a lot going on at the trade deadline. I hope you're following all along. To those of you out there, really do appreciate it. We'll see. We will see. But a lot of folks are unhappy, and I'd argue rightfully so, with what the Braves front office has done, not only right now, but really more so with the previous offseason. They're going to have a big one this year. Pastor Chuck, does Sale get a new deal in the offseason? Well, while we have a little bit of a lull as more things hopefully come in, let's look at Chris Sale for a second, because I believe he's still under team control. I don't think he needs a new deal, I guess is what I'm getting at. He is a free agent this year, but he has a 26-team option, and I got a feeling we'll pick it up. I don't know why we wouldn't. Corey Carter says, geez, it seems like another slap in the face may have just happened if there was no market for anyone we wanted to move, which that very well may be the case. A lot of folks are, going to be mad if Alex Anthopoulos doesn't make a move here, or if the front office doesn't make a move. but it very well just may not be a market. I mean, these guys are hard to sell, right? Marcell Ozuna's been hurt. He's got off the field issues in the past. He hasn't had the best year, and he only wants to play somewhere where he can play every day, which makes it really hard to sell anybody on that package. Raisel Iglesias, again, damaged goods in a way, has not had the best year of his career, and it's just hard to sell. And, we'll have to see what happens. The only other two guys that I brought up were Pierce Johnson and Aaron Bummer, and to be honest with you, the Braves may not want to sell them because they do have team control next year. So, but we'll see. We're getting to the tail end. We're 5 minutes past the hour. It may not happen. I kind of hope we hear from AA today, maybe during this broadcast. So we'll see. But a lot of folks are not going for it. If it doesn't happen, if Ozuna and Iglesias both are not moved, I think you could consider this a quote-unquote failed trade deadline. But all in all, I don't know really if you can blame AA because it's like selling a pen that doesn't write, in a lot of ways. So it's tough. But we are still following. Things do tend to happen later than this, and AA, historically speaking, has been a last-minute guy. But very little is happening. And we're going to have to wait and see. But, we were talking earlier just about the guys who have had big weeks, and there's a lot of teams that had big weeks. We talked about the Mets. We talked about the Phillies. The Astros had a big week. Ken Rosenthal just made a tweet. The Astros are done. They have had enough, and they've gotten what they came for. Of course, the big deal with the Astros was they got Carlos Correa. They also got Ramon Urias and Jesus Sanchez. Talks with Dylan Cease were legitimate and at times picking up steam, but ultimately never got over the finish line. So Dylan Cease doesn't look like anybody's moving. So we'll have to see what happens, but I'm hoping that we at least hear from AA tonight. It's not looking like a deal is going to be made unless something comes in after, but it's not looking like the Braves are going to make a huge move. But all in all, that's not good. That means the Braves, if it indeed stays the way it is, will have Marcell Ozuna and Raisel Iglesias for the remainder of the season. And that is not what I'd hoped for. That is not what I know you guys had hoped for. But all in all, we'll have to see. Georgia Dog says, Tyler did explain when you have Liberty Media's ownership, it's hard to have blockbuster stars to pair with Acuna. Yeah, that's really it, right? That's really it. It's tough to, if you're given a hard line that you can't cross and you have to budget, you're going to have down years, right? That's why we see a lot of teams tank, right, over time. They go bad for a season and then they're right back with it. That happens. And right now the Braves are having one of those years. I definitely think AA probably wanted to do more, but he also probably wishes that the team was competitive, and they're not. So it's kind of a tough way to go about it. But it is what it is. I did just see that there is something else happening. Hang on just a second. Taj Bradley is coming back from Tampa Bay in the Griffin Jacks trade. So Griffin Jacks just got traded to the Twins from the Tampa Bay Rays. So a lot of folks are moving still. So there is still hope that the Braves got a deal in before 6 o'clock. But we are running out of time. And right now it's looking like Ozuna very well may be playing tonight. So we'll have to see. Oh, Lord. On the go with CeeLo says, got the word. I'm not going to the game, and I'm kind of happy about it. I don't really want to watch this team play ball. That's a bad thing because I stream Braves baseball. Look, I don't like getting on here and talking about it because it's embarrassing almost. Ken Rosenthal says, return to the Pirates for Taylor Rogers is outfield a minor leaguer. No big deal there. Yeah, it's disappointing. It's really disappointing. And it's hard to know who to be mad at, right? Like it's hard to know if it's Liberty Media. It's hard to know if it's the team altogether or if it's Alex Anthopoulos. Is it's just tough to know because there's so many different ways that it's controlled. Because I can sit here and I can say, well, Alex Anthopoulos should have made a move, right? But again, how do you sell somebody like Ozuna? And again, like Ozuna, but he only wants to go somewhere where he's going to play every day, and he hasn't been playing up to that level. It's tough to sell. It's tough to sell Iglesias, the stats he's got. And again, for Double-A's sake, there's no way that he would have known that this year would have gone this way. You might have thought, well, we might need to get some pitching at the deadline. That's kind of what I thought, to be honest with you. At the beginning of the year, it's like, well, they'll at least be competitive. They'll at least be competitive this year. But no. Yep, Braves are done at the deadline. Yep, that is it. So the Braves, the extent of the trade deadline is this. They picked up Carlos Carrasco from the Yankees for cash considerations. They picked up Eric Fetty on free agency. They got right-handed pitcher Tyler Kinley. They lose a right-handed pitcher, Austin Smith, to the Rockies. And that's pretty much it. So it's other than that, they lost, of course, Rafael Montero to Detroit, picking up Jim Jarvis, an infielder. Yeah. So basically, here's what's going to happen. The Braves are going to struggle. They're going to struggle to the end of this year. It's going to be ugly. You're going to have some good moments maybe, but they are not going to be competitive for the most part of this year. That's kind of, based on what we have seen, that's where we're at. And this year has been absolutely dreadful. CeeLo said earlier, I don't like watching the games. I got to be honest with you, I don't really either. I'm not the biggest fan of it because right now, and it stinks because that's so much a part of what I do that it's awful. It's not a lot of fun, and it stinks because we invested so much into this team over the past few years that this is just not what we thought would happen. And we thought the window is at least another 3 to 4 years. And I still think next year they very well could ramp right back up and be a 90 to 100 win team. But right now it's really looking meek. I think you're going to get to the off season. You are going to maybe look at what you got and reorganize. Maybe that means you let go of Sean Murphy, right? Because that's the one guy that Double-A has mentioned that he may let go of. But other than that, you're going to try to rebuild your pen. You're going to try to get your starting pitching back healthy. You're going to try to maybe add some with being under the luxury tax, or at least out from under the luxury tax. So all in all, not happy with the trade deadline. I really thought Marcell Ozuna and Raisel Iglesias would be moved, and we would at least have some exciting prospects to look forward to. Maybe a couple of pitchers with some team control. But all in all, I can't really blame Alex Anthopoulos. I mean, how do you sell this package? As good of a salesman as he may be, it's tough to make that sell. It really is. And I don't know if I'm not mad at him. I can't, I'm disappointed that we were unable to do it. And the real reason that I'm disappointed is because every year the trade deadline is something you could circle it on the calendar. That's going to be a fun day, for the Braves. At least since 21, that's been the case. And this year it's just not. But granted, I don't know that it ever really was going to be, but we didn't get a lot done, and it feels like a missed opportunity. I guess at this point, we wait for the off season. Of course, I'll be here following the season as it goes. I think right now for the NL East, it's either going to be won by the Mets or the Phillies. The Mets have a pretty good lead last I checked. No, they're up by half a game, so it's still a division race, but the Mets are leading, and they just got quite a deal here for Gregory Soto, Tyler Rogers, Ryan Helsley, Cedric Mullins. But hey, they're in it. That's why they're making moves, and we're not, I guess. So I guess I can answer a few more questions, but let's see what we got. A lot of people just waiting for football, it looks like. James Franny, thrill of victory, agony of defeat. Window is not closed. 2026 will be back. I certainly hope so. Corey Carter says Double A may have miscalculated the importance of veteran leadership with the losses of Darno, Morton, Freddie Freeman, Dansby, Freed. As much as we can talk about veteran leadership, and I don't disagree with that, I think it's more we just haven't replaced a lot of those guys. We replaced Freddie with Olsen. We have not replaced Dansby. Orlando's gone. We have obviously Darno, comes up, Drake Baldwin, Murphy, that's all right. Freed didn't replace. Morton didn't replace. So it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough. And I'm going to get myself in trouble. But I think we have a problem in the organization. And what I'm going to say is this. I think that when you have pitchers who are getting injured at this rate, and Chris Sale is an outlier, who would have thought that would have happened, but elbow injuries to A.J. Smith-Shawver, Grant Holmes, Schwellenbach, we got a problem. We have a major problem. Reynaldo Lopez is on 60-day IL with shoulder inflammation. I mean, we have such a mountain to climb when that happens. If it was just Sale, okay, whatever. But it's not just Sale. It's Sale, Schwellenbach, Reynaldo, Grant Holmes, A.J. Smith-Shawver. And that just doesn't – you cannot be competitive without pitching. And to me, that starts the case for, do we need a new pitching coach? Or is it a training thing? Is it a strength and conditioning thing? I don't know. But what I do know is right now, based on the current trajectory of the roster, we are having injuries left and right. This is not a new thing. This is as worse as it's ever been, but this isn't a new thing. We've seen injuries over the past few years accumulate and accumulate and accumulate. And at some point, you have to wonder why it's not happening to other teams. At some point, you have to ask the question. And right now, that's where we're at. And I don't know what's going to change. We made a change at hitting coach last year. Maybe we make a change with Kranitz at the pitching coach position. I don't know. I do think that if the signs are going the way we're headed, I do think that Snitker will likely move on at the end of the year. I think he'll retire, probably move to a front office job. But all in all, you can't blame Snit when the players he has on the field are not the players that we signed to play the positions they're in. And I'm tired of it. It's disheartening and it's just tough. And I can tell you this, it's not just the Braves necessarily, but they're probably on the worst run of it. The game of baseball, with pitching in particular, has gotten to a point where nobody really knows what to do. Nobody knows if pitchers should throw less miles per hour. But the injuries are up there. And it's nothing new across baseball. It's new with the Braves. We haven't seen it like this. And no other team has seen it quite like this, the injury bug. We got to start looking internally. And we got to start asking ourselves, why is this the case? And until we do, I don't know that it's going to change. So, but the injuries, specifically the pitching injuries, Acuna is his own case with the legs, and I get that. You can't blame a coach for that. But the pitching injuries, when it's three elbows and one shoulder in just your starting rotation, not to mention the years before where we've seen injuries, you start to kind of ask yourself, all right, one or two, I don't know. What I do know is this: Leo Mazzoni had one Tommy John surgery in 20 years with the Braves. Granted, they didn't throw as hard, but gosh, it just stinks because if you don't throw hard, you're Bryce Elder right now in the game. That's what that leads to. You have a 4 or 5 ERA and you're inconsistent. If you do throw hard, you have a 3-year career without a Tommy John surgery. And, I begin to wonder. David Thatcher says this team stunk before the injuries. No, I disagree. Look at 23, the best offense in baseball. Look at, not to mention the rotation back in 23. I disagree. The past 2 years has been such a just injury after injury after injury. And we got to start asking ourselves, why is it the Braves who are getting hurt like this? Because I don't know of another team that is. And if anybody would like to point at, that's competitive anyway. If anybody would like to point at me and show me where they are, I'd like to see them because I don't see it. You know, I just, it's a tough road. It really is. Corey Carter says the radar gun is a lie. It's still about location, location, location. Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I definitely, it's also a changing of speeds, right? If you can change speeds and locate, you can pitch. It's really all it is. David Thatcher says this year they were bad before the injuries. Oh yeah, I don't disagree with that. The 07 start, I know that. I get that. That I would say is primarily because we didn't add anything. We were hoping that, again, like I said earlier, the power of friendship would get our starting rotation by. I think our offense, you know, you lose Profar at the beginning of the year. Acuna's not back yet. You know, and that's kind of tough. Ozzy's coming off of injury and not playing right. You know, that to me, the offense was going to be what the offense is. But it's hard to win anyway if your pitching is this injured, and on top of that, the guys who aren't injured are Rafael Montero and Inyo de los Santos. That's my point, right? So we were already limited, and then the injuries set in. But these injuries would have killed any team. If it was the Mets, if the Mets lost all 5 guys in their starting rotation, they don't have a season anymore. So we got to do better at keeping our guys on the field. And right now, the Braves are really struggling with that. And I think there's got to be a shakeup, but I don't think it's necessarily the roster. I mean, to some degree, but not the way you're thinking. I think it's more coaching, and I think it's we've got to make that change. And I said the other day, I said earlier in this broadcast, this is the intermission of the window. Something's got to change to ignite the second wave of the window. And we'll have to see if they're able to do it. But guys, that's going to wrap up our trade deadline coverage. We really do appreciate you guys for tuning in. Again, the Braves, kind of a lackluster trade deadline, no doubt about it. Not an exciting one. Of course, we'll go through it one more time. Acquiring Eric Fetty and Carlos Carrasco to basically cover the innings for the remainder of the year. They get Tyler Kinley, trade away Austin Smith to the Rockies. They got Jim Jarvis, an infielder, and of course traded away Rafael Montero, as well as DFAing Inyo de los Santos. But that's pretty much it. I mean, there's nothing else to it. So disappointing. I'm curious to see what Alex Anthopoulos says in his media appearances following. I assume he'll be on 680 at some point, but we'll have to wait and see. Guys, if you haven't already, if you're new to the stream, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck, and of course, with the Atlanta Braves, with Major League Baseball at large, and of course, everything going on with me as well. You can find me on social media at Tyler Redmond TV. That's Twitter and Instagram. And of course, we'll be following everything going on with the Braves, even though it is tough to watch. We'll be following it. But remember to like, and of course, please do help us any way you can, but the best way you can is like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. With that, we will see you next time right here and On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.